Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Welcome to Target Market Insights. I'm your host, John Kasman, the founder of Kasman Capital Group, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying this podcast, do me a favor, take 1 second and leave us a 5-star rating and review. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, if you're interested in multifamily investing and you want to review a sample deal package, you are in luck. We've got a free download right now on our website. Just go to kasmancapital.com/sample deal, and you'll get a chance to take a look at what a sample deal package looks like. Now, you'll also join our mailing list, which will give you access to phenomenal tips from both our podcast guests as well as our own real experience, as well as exclusive investment opportunities if you qualify. Just go to kasmancapital.com/sample deal to get your free download today. All right, today we're going to be talking to my man, Matthew Baltzell. Matthew hosts the podcast Real Estate Journeys and is a real estate investor who works as an analyst at Boardwalk Wealth, a private equity company which specializes in acquiring large multifamily apartments in the U.S. Now, his current focus is on helping investors scale their business to 100 units and become location independent. With that said, let's welcome to the show, Matthew Baltzell.
Thank you very much for having me, John. I'm excited to be here.
Matthew, great talking to you as usual. Listen, you talked, I'm going to start backwards. Your focus right now is helping people scale to 100 units to become location independent. Where are you coming from today?
So I'm coming at you all the way from Southeast Asia in Chiang Mai, Thailand. It is currently 9:25 p.m. and it's about 10:15 your time or 10:25 your time. So yeah, I'm all the way on the other side of the world right now.
All right, man. So what took you out there, right? Because you're originally from the States, right? So how'd you get all the way out there to Thailand?
So I'm originally born and raised from Denver, Colorado, and I left the States back in June 2016 to travel the world. And I originally set out to move to Berlin, and things didn't necessarily work out for me. So I was like, all right, where am I going? Am I going back home? Like I was going to live abroad for a year, and it's like, okay. So I wound up in Thailand and I met my wife. And I met my wife two and a half years ago and fell in love, and we got married last year. And that's kind of what brought me out here. And it's just been a really crazy experience. We are expecting our first child in January. And actually tomorrow we are finding out the sex of the baby.
Wow.
So we're super excited about that.
Congratulations, man. That's amazing. So, huge congratulations on that. Are you hoping or leaning one way or the other? Is there a preference? Don't worry, it's just me and you talking. I was like
95% sure leaning into boy, right? And then I'm like, I'm so convinced it's a boy that I kind of want it to be a girl, to be like, whoa, shocked.
Shock value.
Yeah, the doctor just being like, it's a boy. Be like, yeah, okay, cool, dude, no problem.
There you go. So I thought. Awesome, man.
So I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand right now, and then my wife and I will be returning to the States sometime, probably towards the second half of 2020 once her visas clear up.
Got it. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. We look forward to giving the update as far as whether or not you're having a boy or girl. I'm sure you'd be happy either way. What took you out there, though? Because you started talking about, being in Denver, you met your wife.
Yeah.
Went out there. Did you meet your wife here in the States, or did you meet her out there?
No. I met her out here on Tinder. No.
This story is just getting better and better.
Yeah. No, it's like, it's funny because, you learn about a lot of different cultures, and like a lot of girls use Tinder just like to meet people. And they're like, oh, like you're my friend. And you're like, okay, that's not what we really use it for in the States, but okay. Like, all right, we are friends. All right. Like, so I originally left. I wanted to travel and see the world. And I've always wanted to go to Germany. And when I got there, I was living in Berlin, and it just didn't feel right to me. Like, I was like, do I really want to stay here? And I got rid of everything. Like, I sold my car, sold my surfboard, sold I was actually living in California before I moved, but so I sold everything and I scrapped it down to the bare minimum. And I just I had this like euphoric shedding of my clothes. I was giving away my paintings, my art, my plants, and people were just like, "Do you want any money?" I was like, "No, like I don't need it." Like I just had this complete like release. And then when you're abroad in a different country and you're like, I gave everything away to come here. I didn't know if I really wanted this. And now do I go back? Do I retreat? Oh my God. So all these things kind of been kicking around in my head. So when I got to Thailand, I got to Thailand 2016. And when I got here, you have a lot of time to think and reflect. And I started thinking like, okay, like what have I been good at in the past, right? Like what do I want to get involved with when I go back to the United States? And I wanted to get involved in commercial real estate, but I knew I wasn't going to be back for a while. So I kind of thought like, okay, that's kind of, like a little bit of a crazy thing to kind of conceptualize. And I started talking to people and they're like, oh, you want to invest in condos in Chiang Mai? And I said, no, like I don't want to get invested in condos. So a lot of people are very familiar with bigger pockets. So I got in bigger pockets and I was like, okay, like I want to get involved in multifamily. So I created a digital meetup because, if everybody says meetup, go to your meetup. Well, I'm in Asia. Like there's no multifamily meetups. I can tell you that right now. So I created a digital meetup and it wasn't the most successful. There was probably about 8 people. We had people from San Francisco, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, a couple other people. But the thing was like, I kind of like thought outside the box. And one of the people that was on the forum, they commented, and she's one of my mentors, but she kind of was just like, hey, like, let me know what you're doing in 3 months or like a month. Keep me up to date. So I kept reaching out to her, giving her updates, like just staying in touch. And then after I think 3 months or something along those lines, I was talking about like a syndication calculator, underwriting or something like that. Mm-hmm. She's like, well, why don't I put you in touch with Omar? And Omar is the CEO of Boardwalk Wealth, where I'm currently working at right now. And then it just kind of all like snowballed from there. And Omar was like, hey, I need you to do something for me. I was like, all right, cool. He's like, can you do something else for me? All right, cool. All right, cool. All right, cool. And it's like, we've been kind of going at this for a while. Like, and so, yeah, so I've just basically been soaking up everything like a sponge. And, like you said earlier, I have the podcast as well, Real Estate Journeys. And, I'm trying to develop my network and learn as much abroad. And I want to basically help people achieve 100 units because right now, multifamily is a very, very hot topic. And a lot of people think that like, if they go into real estate and they achieve passive income, like they'll be able to retire, right? But do they really want to get into real estate? There's other ways to get in. You can be like, you can be a limited partner. You can do a bunch of different things. You don't necessarily have to be the syndicator, right? So I want to help people hit like that 100 mark and go do you, go out into the world. So that's my kind of.
Let's unpack that a little bit, right? Because we started talking about you going to Germany, moving to Thailand, trying to figure out what you're going to do. At some point, you decided, you know what, I want to get into commercial real estate, even from Thailand. And I think, one of the things that I like about your story here is that you got started being out of the country. And, there are always some barriers that you as an investor will need to overcome. The timing is never right. It's just never a perfect timing to get started. So, I think it's really incredible that you were able to start something and you continue to take action. So you mentioned the digital meetup. Can you just talk a little bit more about that? What exactly is a digital meetup?
So, my digital meetup, I mean, I kind of just made it up in my head, right? I was like, I didn't even really know what it was. So basically this was our digital meetup. So everybody kind of got together for the first meeting and everybody went around and said what they were working on, right? Like
when you say got together though, what do you mean? Like in a chat room? Like was it Facebook Live or okay.
So we got together, I believe it was a Zoom meetup. So everybody has their like little block squares. Like if you've ever been in a mastermind, like everybody's kind of circled around. So everybody had, I think it was maybe like 5 minutes to speak, kind of tell their story, what they're trying to get into. One gentleman out of Pennsylvania, he was trying to do like a fix and flip, the Burr method. Another guy was a wholesaler. One other, I think there's one or two other multifamilies people. So everybody kind of went around and said what they're working on. And, with 8 people, 40 minutes. And then after that, we basically had to come up with, like I came up with before the meeting, you had to come up with 2 goals, right? And then what do you want to accomplish by next meeting? And kind of like we would hold each other accountable. And then after everybody said their goals, people would like say, oh, like John, you're trying to target New Jersey. Like I have a friend, like I'll give you contact information or throw out like helpful suggestions. So the whole meeting kind of wasn't, I'll say, as organized as I would have liked, but that was basically the premise of it. And it kind of ran for about an hour and a half. And then when the next meeting came around, the first thing everybody did after like the introductions was they would say like, my goal last month was to call 5 brokers. I called 4, I didn't call the other one, blah, blah, blah. And then you just give people updates, and then you give another update for what your goal is for the next month. And then people would come in and out of the meeting, and then I would categorize it in a spreadsheet, write it down, and then I would send it to people via email and just kind of let everybody know what everybody's goals were to help everybody be under one umbrella.
Got it. Makes sense. So using that platform, that was the way to get started. And one of the people who was in that meeting is the person who introduced you to Omar. And that was kind of that connection, right?
Well, so so the lady that introduced me to Omar, she was not part of the meetup at all. She was just a person that commented. So of the 8 people, she was off on the side, and she's like, "Oh, cool! Like I like what you're doing. Just let me know." She wasn't even in the meetup. So she was just like, "Oh, like that's interesting, your digital meetup. Like just let me know what's going on. I'm interested." And I was thinking of maybe starting something similar, just kind of go that way. So yeah, she wasn't even in the meetup.
That's awesome, man. And that just goes to show, by starting to take some action, putting something together, the connections start to form. Even if that person wasn't in the meetup, she saw what you were doing and liked it and started connecting you. So that's a great sign just to, take action. And there are times where we feel a little bit of trepidation between putting ourselves out there, creating something. But, you kind of really need to do that if you want to gain some exposure and try to make the connections that you need to build your business. So let's fast forward. You got connected to Omar. You're helping with Boardwalk Wealth. You're an analyst there. What are you seeing from an analyst perspective when you're looking at markets and opportunities? What kind of things are you looking for?
Yeah. So as far as like our investment criteria, so we specialize in acquiring multifamily apartments between 100 and 200 units, B2C class properties, value add. We preferably look for pitch roofs and rents between 10 to 15% below market. And we're basically targeting right now, our markets that we're targeting are Atlanta, Jacksonville, and like Florida, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and the Dallas area. So those kind of like 3 little pockets, I would say. And we like landlord-friendly states. I know a lot of people that are partaking in the value add or real estate investing in general. You want the ball more favorable on your side as an investor, as opposed to being more favorable for the tenant. So that's what the markets we're looking in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we recently acquired a 138 unit in Jacksonville earlier in February. And we have another LOI out right now. Sorry. But yeah, the market, as you know, the market's very, very tight right now, and people are submitting, like we lost a deal to a guy who put $1 million hard down like right away. And we're like, yeah, okay, like, yeah, we're out.
Right.
We're out.
Right.
So I don't know. Like I feel as though like we're doing well. Like we're doing well, but I wouldn't mind like a little shakeup. I'm all the way around in Thailand, so I might not feel as much pressure as like the boys on the ground. But yeah, that's where we kind of stand at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's tough too, right? So you talk about the market being tight. I mean, when you're analyzing a ton of deals, you're putting in a ton of LOIs. I know that it can feel like there's a lot of work
Banging
being
your head
done and
against the
not,
wall.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And as the analyst, that's kind of your primary role, right? It's kind of taking a look at these deals and analyzing them.
Yeah. So I'm analyzing the properties, I'm looking at them, and I'm helping with like investor relations, media relations. And that's one of the things also too. I want people to hear like my story and kind of say like, all right, I'm 30 minutes outside of Chicago. Like, there's no reason why I can't drive in once every quarter and make a meetup. Or, you you just have to really think creatively, because the more I learn, the more I realize it's really a team sport. And people think when they hear just like, oh, I'm going to acquire like 75 units, 100 units, like there's a lot that goes into it. There's really a lot that goes into it, right? You have your underwriters, you have your sponsors, you have your LPs, your GPs, your lawyers, like you have millions of people, not millions, but you have a lot of people on your team, and you have to start somewhere. And if I can start all the way around the world in Thailand, like you can start, if you're listening to this, you can start in your car today. It's just a matter of making that transition and really going for it.
I think the thing I like most about it, Matthew, is, the key really is not trying to do it all by yourself.
Yeah, for
If
sure.
you look at this as a team sport and you figure out what you can do, don't focus so much on what your limitations are and your drawbacks and your lack of experience, but focus on what you can do. Bring
Yeah.
that value to the table. See how you can add value to someone else. That is a phenomenal way to get the ball rolling, to get started, to start getting the experience necessary to align yourself with a team that can be successful and grow. And I think that's the biggest point is, if you're looking at a smaller portfolio, single family duplexes, you can absolutely do that, but you're going to be responsible for every aspect of that deal. But if you get to a larger approach, larger apartment buildings, even if maybe you have some capital, but you don't necessarily know everything about property management, or you have the capital, you don't have the time to do those things. There's great ways to come in with commercial multifamily and be an investor. And I think your story being in Thailand is a great representation of that. Right now you're on a journey, right? We've talked about getting, investors from 0 to 100 units. Why 100 units, and why is this your mission right now?
So, Michael Blanc and, Robert Kiyosaki, they always say like your freedom number, right?
Mm.
And I basically say like, I think like if you're clearing $100 a unit, right? $100 a door times that times 100, like there's no way that you should not be like financially set for the rest of your life. Like there's just no way. Like I don't have the math exactly in front of me, but I think that's, let's see, 100 times, I know this is simple math, but I'm not the best. So 100 unit times 100, that's 10,000 a month, right? Like that's 10,000 times 12 months, you got 120,000. Like $120,000, you could be able to live pretty well. And I think, you know, that's kind of like my mission. And I'm trying to think like, okay, I'm in Thailand, right? And there's guys like Omar and all these other guys. We have, other partners in Miami, and these guys are just like,
Mhm.
they're just so smart, right? They're so smart, and they know all this. And like, I feel like John's more sophisticated than me, and everybody that I bring on my show, and I'm always like, what am I doing? This is so dumb, right? But the thing is, like, I'm learning at like such a quick rate. And I think that like, if I can help people see like my journey and be like, okay, like he's kind of doing it, like, and the thing is like, with my team, I feel so much stronger than doing it by myself. Like I tell people like, I don't mind being Scottie Pippen. Like Omar can be Michael Jordan. He can get the rings. He can be the sponsor. Like if I can just learn some stuff and like invest in some deals and like and get like my stuff, but still live in Thailand for like 2 months out of the year and still work abroad like I'm already doing, and then come back and then live in
Yeah.
Denver for off 120,000. Like I would be the happiest man. And I think a lot of people, they don't want $1 million. They want what they think $1 million lifestyle is. They think they want to be able to travel. They want to be able to, not report to a boss. And I think, that number for people if they're able to if they're able to get 100 units, will open up avenues for people that'll be able to go out into the world and really focus on what they want to. So that's kind of what my perspective is. I want to show people, like, if I can potentially hit 100 units myself and, you know, live abroad halfway around the world and start a podcast, so can you in Des Moines, Iowa, Cincinnati, Chicago, Nashville, Spokane, Washington. Like, anybody can do it, really. You just have to surround yourselves with the right individuals. And I started a podcast. Listen, I started a podcast all the way around in Thailand. I interviewed Rod Khalifa at 3 a.m. and he was like, "Hey, buddy!" Like, I was like, "Yeah, dude." Like, I was picking crusties out of my eye.
Rod's like that at 3 a.m. too, so it's all right. If it was 3 a.m. in the States, he would have been that energetic as well.
Yeah, he was just going for it, man. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh God. So, it's like you got to want it. You got to want it. Got to want it. You got to want it, and surround yourself with the right people, and you'll develop your confidence, and like all boats will rise. And the next thing you know, like, I don't know, you'll be on a podcast talking to you, John. Like,
I love it, man. Good stuff. All right, so let's do two things. I want to dive a little bit into the markets and just get some top level analysis, and I also want to talk about your podcast. So let's start with the markets. You've mentioned Texas, in particular Dallas. You've mentioned Florida, Jacksonville, and Atlanta. What do you see when you look at those three markets as far as either growth or opportunities or anything that pops to you that says, this is really interesting. This is something that makes this very appealing to us as a potential investment market?
Yeah. So as far as Jacksonville and Atlanta are concerned, like, the year over year rents are increasing at like a dramatic amount. I forget off the top of my head. I'd have to look at a report. But I think Jacksonville and both Atlanta for year over year rent increases, effective rent increases, is like both in the top 10, 15 cities in the United States. And so for people that are listening to that, like, that's just great. Like, that makes your job so much easier if you're able to buy right, go in, add value, rents increase by 3% yearly. You're doing it on a 5-year hold. Like, you're going to automatically, like, that's part of your strategy, right? You want to go in and be able to raise the NOI. And so particularly Jacksonville and Atlanta, we really like those. And Dallas is also good as well, but there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of sponsors that are based out of there, and there's a stronger foothold to compete against. And we have some other partners that are in Miami and another one that's in St. Petersburg, I believe, or Tampa. I think they're the same thing. I can't remember. But yeah, as far as that's concerned, like, the year over year rent increases is really good. And we also look for markets with over 1 million greater population in the MSA. Other people look at secondary, tertiary markets. We necessarily don't really focus on that as much. That's just kind of the criteria that we've come up with. Mm-hmm. But as far as like the year over year rent increases is one of the main things that we look for. And like I mentioned before, we look for rents. We try and find rents 10 to 15% below market as well. And we have done that successfully through broker relations and just really kind of being on top of the market. And we find out like those two things kind of play hand in hand with each other.
No, it's great. I mean, if I were to break this down into the simplest takeaway, it's from a macro market standpoint, you're looking at 1 million population in the MSA. You're looking at MSAs where rents are growing, and you're looking at properties that are 10 to 15% below the market rent range for those rents, right? So that's how you're finding opportunities where you kind of, you're being conservative because the property itself, there's room to increase rents, but then also the market itself, there's an opportunity to increase rents. So potentially you have, two rent bumps, two that are independent of each other, where there could be potential for future rent gains. So I think, again, for our investors and for even our passive investors who are listening, those are the kind of things you look for. Conservative investments, you want to make sure that there's some room for rents to increase. And you look for, areas that you're seeing rents increase in the macro market, but then also properties where the rents are below market value and you can increase the rent. So again, if you're looking for a value add strategy, if you're looking for a conservative investment, those are two things that kind of go hand in hand as great opportunities that give you some downside protection based on where the market is today. Matthew, let's transition and talk about the podcast, right? So you've
Yeah.
launched Real Estate Journeys. You've had some great guests on thus far, and I've had the pleasure of being interviewed for your show. And I really appreciate, the show and the content that you're putting out there. What made you launch this show in the first place?
So, like I said, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but so I wanted to develop my network within the real estate community. And I was kind of harping on Omar to start a podcast. And he was just like, I'm up to my ankles in it. Like, I'm not starting a podcast. And I was like, And I helped out with another gentleman. He had a podcast like 2 years ago. It was a real estate podcast. It's no longer around, but I helped get like some guests on his show. And I'm pretty good technically savvy. So I just kind of think like, man, I had the itch to do it. I kind of knew how to relatively get guests on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just thought, like I'm in Thailand. Like if I'm really going to want to talk to brokers and talk to entrepreneurs and talk to people that are really shaking and baking, making moves, like I said, it all just goes back to thinking creatively. And I can't even tell you, I still make a lot of mistakes in my podcast, and it's a learning process. But the point is like just to continue to do it. And I actually counted today. I'm at, I think it was 64 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I didn't think I was going to be able to make it to 64 episodes. But here I am. So yeah, I basically, to answer your question, I wanted to do it to develop my network.
It's awesome. I think it's a great way to develop your network. I think too, if you're in the education space, I think there's two types of people, right? There's folks who are well established, extremely credible, who are looking at it as a media outlet for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So those are the names, the celebrities, the folks who already have a platform. It's just another outlet. And then I think there's people who use it as an education platform. And yes, you're going to gain some awareness and you'll make some connections, but the knowledge that you gain, as well as the relationships that you gain, and the credibility, quite frankly, I think that helps tremendously. And it's not just launch a podcast, you're now crowned the next real estate guru. It's more so about what do you know? What guests do you have on? What are you talking about? It's a great way to demonstrate your intelligence or expertise, but also to gain that intelligence and expertise. If you can bring on highly accomplished, very successful investors, entrepreneurs, and pick their brain. I mean, for me, it's like, dude, if you had a chance to sit and just pick the brains of some of the most successful people over and over and over and put that in your pocket, that's a great way to continue to build your experience, your knowledge, and your network, and sharing that with the world. Again, it takes some vulnerability to put yourself out there like that, especially if you're not a polished presenter or polished speaker, or you make mistakes and you say ums and ahs and all those kind of things, which many people do. But it's a chance to get yourself out there. So definitely something smart to do. And I'm glad you made it to 64 episodes, and I know you'll get to 100 very soon, and keep cracking at what you're doing there. We're going to get ready to transition to our Bullseye round. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Matthew, first question, how has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success?
Well, I didn't mention it before, but back in 2008, I helped my mother manage 10 single family homes, and we basically went belly up and had to liquidate everything. So I would say that kind of was like, all right, I don't want to get into wholesaling. I don't want to get into single family. Like, I want to go larger, go into multifamily. So boom, that failure and like learning from that has definitely set me up for where I am today.
So let's break that down a little bit. I know my Bullseye round, but as a host, I get to call some audible. You lost. You had 10 units. You went belly up, and your feedback was, "Let's go bigger." Explain.
So for myself, from a standpoint, right? Like I'm thinking, like when I'm in Thailand, I'm thinking abroad, and I'm thinking like, do I want to get involved in single family homes again when I get back? Like, that's like what a lot of people think, like get duplex, kind of build up and do that and that. And I was like, listen, like know that grind. I know that game. And especially where the market is now, it's basically 2008 to 2009. Like, it's almost like at the same point. Is it going to burst? Is it going to go another 2 years? And so, I was like, I want to get into multifamily. I don't even want to, I'm not talking 5 units. I was thinking 50 above.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go for maybe, I don't want to say the jugular, but I want to link up with individuals and people that are shaking and baking, raising some capital, taking down some large units, and not, like you can do a 2, a 2, a 2, a 2, a 4, a 5, and you have 15, 20 different contracts and you have 45 units. Or you can possibly take down a 50 unit in still one contract, surround yourself with the right people, raise enough capital, and then bada bing, bada boom. It's been 2 years. You have one contract, one deal. Like you just closed on, we spoke on our podcast, you closed 192 unit, right?
172. Yeah, we just did 172 units. Yeah. Last week, actually. So, yeah, I think to your point, I mean, now I get it, right? So it was the 10 single family houses and managing 10 separate, properties, tenants, all of that. I got it. That makes sense. Instead of having everything spread out across 10 properties, having it all be in one central location with, property management. That makes sense. Makes a ton of sense. Got it. Okay. All right. Let's get back to the Bullseye piece here. What is the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year?
The book that I've recommended giving away the most in the past year. One of my favorite books is called The Alchemist. It's by Paulo Coelho. I really love that book. It's about 200 pages. It's short read. It's basically just about it's about a young shepherd that's on his journey. And, basically there's a lot of good, morals and underlinings that are in it, but it's very kind of like a spiritual book as well. And I'd say that's probably the book that I've regifted the most.
All right. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
One that I'm using effectively right now is Dropbox. I really like Dropbox.
What is a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
Daily habit that helps me stay focused on my goals, I would say probably go to the gym. When I have a lot of clarity when I'm pushing myself on like a cardio level, and I just have like a lot of clarity. So that helps me start the day right, and I could think and I feel fresh, and I'm able to go from there.
Get that heart rate going, and the ideas and everything just comes through. I get it.
Yeah.
All right. What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Starting out in real estate or starting out?
Yeah, real estate.
I would say a mindset, don't be afraid to think big. And if you see something that is big, don't rule it off. Like, even if you think like a real estate development, right, of like developing a mall, don't think like, oh, I can never do that. Start thinking like, well, if I were to build a mall, like how would I go about doing that? I'd probably want to talk to like a big brokerage firm. Okay, well, let me call them, right? They might laugh in your face, but you might be pointing in the right direction, and that might lead to something else. So, don't limit yourself to thinking that you have to walk into something when you can run. And I had an old coach that used to say like, why walk when you can run? So that's what I would say.
Love it. What advice would you give to a smart, driven college student about the real world?
About what?
The real world.
The real world? I would say you are your greatest asset, and don't let other people's perceptions become your reality. So if somebody's saying to you, you're a loser, right? If they're saying you're a loser, and inside that you're just like fire, you're $1 million, like that just slides right off your back, because you could be working at a job and you're like, I work this job, but I don't feel like I belong here. Like, this is not me. Like, yes, I'm physically here, but inside, like, I'm somewhere else. I'm working. I know who I am. And don't let somebody else's like perception or them saying something to you become your reality. Because as soon as you accept that, then it becomes you. If you're like, oh, I guess I'm kind of a loser, then you aren't a loser. But if you really know who you are, then it should never matter. No Instagram, no anything. should ever really be able to affect you, because you know who you are as an individual and what you can get in life, and you'll be able to get it.
Yeah, it's a great point. A great point there. What are you curious about right now?
What am I really curious about? I'm curious about being a parent, for one. Like, that definitely, I definitely have my days where I'm like, what? Whoa. Like, I talked to my mom and she said, I was like, how many diapers does like you have to change a day? Like 4? She's like, no, I think the first year you change about 5, or she's like 10 to 14 a day. I was like, oh my God, 10 to 14. I was like, oh my God. I changed a diaper one time, and it was for a babysitter kid, and it was bad. And so I'm definitely interested in being a parent, but I'd say beside that, I'm really fascinated on like a business front as far as technology and where the world is going as far as money's concerned. And I think we're in a very like worldly revolution as far as like money is concerned, and that just fascinates me. And I love just like reading and consuming content and learning about more about the Fed and global economics and how things really work and financing, and just being like setting myself up for the future. Because I think now is the time, now is the time to really hone in and learn, because when it shifts, it's gonna shift.
Yeah.
And I myself have been privy to like saying like, oh man, I could have got in early and invested that, but now things are already over, right? I had the opportunity to invest in a lot of things. I just wasn't aware of it because I wasn't focused and I wasn't thinking on like a more worldly perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So there's opportunities that are always going to be coming around, but I feel like now in technology and now in the world, like, you want to open up your mind in years and start reading and consuming as much as possible, because 10, 15 years, you don't want to be one of those people like, I didn't have my chance in 2021, but shoulda, woulda, coulda, right?
Yep, absolutely. All right, give me the best place to grab a bite in Thailand that you've seen so far, at least.
Okay, so a lot of these places don't even have like names, so we just make up names. Like we got like we got like, it's funny too, like Thais, like they call things very generic. Like, the name of this coffee shop is Joe's Coffee. Like, okay. And then the other one could be like, this is Happy House. You're like, okay. So I would say we call this place Customer's Home, because my wife sells products at this lady, so we call it Customer's Home. I don't even know the name, but yeah, we ate there today. And Customer's Home in Chiang Mai, Thailand. I'll take you there. I can tell you how to get there, but I don't know if you can Google it.
So we will not be linking to this in the show notes, because there's going to be no way for you to find this.
To this.
Awesome. Well, Matthew, you hit on something I want to go back to, right? You talked about the experience level and where you're at starting out and kind of what you can build and get to. I think one important thing for me is not paying so much attention to where everyone else is, because it can become, especially in our world where social media is so prevalent, and you're on Instagram or Facebook and you're watching what someone else is doing, deals that they're closing, or whatever it is, but you can get a little envious and you feel like, well, maybe you're not doing enough. And I think that gets very dangerous, right? I think all you can really do is focus on where you're at, where you want to go, and what steps do you need to take to get there. Because if you start looking at what other people are doing and basing your success off of their success or perceived success, it can be a very dangerous slope. And the other thing too is, you don't know what those individuals are doing. Like, you can't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 15. So if they've been at this, working at it and building and connecting and doing everything else for a while, or they just have more resources to tap into than you do, it's not going to be a fair comparison. So I think you really have to look at yourself and say, okay, here's where I'm at today. Here's where I want to go. What are the steps I need to be doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, an annual basis to get there and achieve those goals? So, I think you're exactly where you're supposed to be on your real estate journey. And I know that you're having a lot of fun and learning a lot more. And I continue to look forward to seeing you continue to grow as an investor and see where you're at a couple of years from now. Obviously, if you have your baby and move back to the States, I know that you're right on the right path. And I love all the information you gave and the inspiration you gave to our listeners. No matter where they're at today on their journey, there's an opportunity to continue to grow and expand and get to the next level.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, like, you know, as far as like move your path, like I was saying, like, you know, Omar and these other guys, you think like, oh man, I got to be a big wig, like I got to raise like $2 million, I got to do all this, and like I just kind of like am carving out my little niche of like, okay, like nobody else is really like having a real estate podcast harping about like independence and just hitting like one little number and just being like, yo, I'm in multifamily, but I live in like Vietnam and Cambodia, or like, you know, wherever you want to live in the world. Like you can live in Cincinnati, you can live in Chicago. You don't have to live in Thailand. You can live in Mexico. Like you could still be on a central time zone. You know, and I think you got to really think about like, how do you really want to live your lifestyle? Like what is happiness to you? And to me, like I want to have freedom. And I know a lot of people want to have freedom, and freedom to me is also including to have a mobility. And, you know, I don't want to be the sole sponsor on a deal. At least I don't think so right now. Because if I do, I think I might be more locked in to less mobility, and I don't want that for myself. So being able, like you said, you know where you are, know what you want, and then take those measurements quarterly, annually, daily to help you get your end goal. And then everything's gravy from there.
Love it. Matthew, thank you for coming on Target Market Insight, sharing your story, talking to us about, you know, how you moved all over to Germany, Thailand, as well as, you know, how to look at markets, the way you guys approach it on the market analysis, and then the benefits that you've received from launching your own podcast. So thanks for sharing all that information. I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. Good luck, and definitely let me know whether or not you're having a boy or girl, and I look forward to staying in touch with you, man. Take care, okay?
Thanks, John.